what we first said we would tackle in today's session is the funding for agencies, the big blue notebook. I guess the first thing that we need to acknowledge is that there are really, our philosophy for funding agencies in this budget is level funding, but there are a couple of agencies, being the Daily Bread and the Senior Citizens Home Assistance, that did not submit financials. It will be our recommendation that until they submit financials, that you would perhaps appropriate, but no checks would be written until they met that test. That they need to meet that minimum sort of requirement before any funding will be given. The third one is a little bit different. It's the Diversity Task Force, which began as a city organization, and I think we would be well served to review the organizational structure of that group. But financially, their resources flow through the city's books. So in terms of the financial data, we have that information. But in terms of their governance and mission and so on, it's something you probably want to examine. With that, I'll
Daily Bread and who?
It's the one that's highlighted, Senior Citizens.
Well, I'm comfortable with your recommendation of the funding that you've allocated here, so I'm good with that.
And this is keeping it at the same level that they were last year,
Yes.
except for central services.
And Central Services got moved because it's being funded from the federal block grant fund.
I guess you all noticed the paper saying that the county was going to start discontinuing in the next 2 or 3 years, discontinue giving any of it. Did you see that?
Have they voted on that?
Yeah, they did, for a bunch of them.
What?
It was for a bunch of them that they are talking about reducing them to 25%. Doesn't start this year, starts next year, and I'll tell you, I voted against that, because I don't think that's proper.
Okay.
Yeah, I read that. Tony, let me ask you this. Should we look at this as some way of being capped? By that I mean, if we could cap it at, say, $250,000 every year rather than it continues to grow. If we could cap the amount and make sure that everyone that is on it is a 501c3, and that's just so that we know that, you know, that they're
It was reduced
legitimate.
a few years ago.
Pardon?
A couple of years ago, it was reduced. We went down.
Yeah.
Well, that may be the case, but I'm just thinking that if we keep it at $250,000 a year, I think that's very, very liberal amount. And I think it's a safe amount. And we're not talking about reducing it. We're just talking about capping it so that we don't have it get out of control. Do you think that's a doable?
What will happen is, council, if you put a cap on the total, you'll have to make some choices down the road about choosing among the groups, but I think that's, as a policy decision, if that's what you want to do, that's doable.
Well, if you do that, the council has the authority to do that. The next council has the authority to change it or not change it, I guess.
That's correct.
So it's always up to the council is what
Right.
you're gonna do, so it doesn't make any difference.
Well, a quarter would reduce it from what it is now, Mayor.
Just wait.
Pardon?
A quarter would reduce it from what it is now,
Well, I understand that.
by
But then,
25,000.
but then there's some of these that there's questions on whether or not they'd be in there. But I'm just thinking that it's a good round figure, it's easy to work with. You're talking about reducing it, what, $6,000? That's provided that all these do.
But you're in fact not really capping it because the council can raise it or lower it at any time.
I understand that.
I'm comfortable with it the way it is.
Well, it's flexible.
What about the Daily Bread and Senior
Senior
Citizens
citizens.
and the other one? Have you got financials on everybody else? Why?
Larry, talk about what you got in terms of the
Right,
package.
everything is in your the blue book. So we received that information from all the others, so.
Financials and everything?
The only one that's not a 501c3, if we gave them a year to be there, that would be good. But I think we need to
I'm
do
just
something.
wondering why you exempt 3 out of all them, you know, just,
They exempt themselves because they're required to. They're the 501c3s to produce the financial statement. They're on the internet.
Just matter of pulling them
Well,
off.
the
because
Crockett,
you've always, Daily Bread and your club,
Senior citizen.
senior citizens, I mean,
Well, we're talking about funding, and we're just asking them to comply with everyone else and just bring us their financial statements, and the money will be there, they can get it, they just need to do what's asked of them.
It wouldn't be fair to do to the others what we've done if we didn't do it to all of them.
But you're saying that all of them has applied and all financials and everything?
Right, and those that are listed all submitted information last year. But for whatever reason, you know, they may have sent it and it got lost in the mail, I don't know. But we have not received from those two organizations. And just a reminder, state law requires them to submit something.
You're on that board.
They
Now,
also
why don't you take care of
produce
that?
a financial statement.
Financial or not, one or the other,
Or what?
or not.
So everybody on here has submitted, is a 501c3 with the exclusion?
Yes.
No, I don't, is diversity?
No.
It's
No.
a city.
No,
So
it's-
we need,
It's,
well.
see, it's been
we're
run
putting
through
them
the
in this
city,
month,
so
correct.
that's where Tony was bringing up,
Yeah.
about the makeup of it, so.
Yeah, I think the diversity has been floating around as an internal task force, and then, you know, it started out being budgeted in the Main Street to Crossroads function, then it got moved to mayor and council. It needs some attention in terms of overall governance, what it's supposed to do, how it's going to be managed. But I don't know that it, to say it's 501c3 means it's completely at arm's length. You need to make the decision whether it's going to be a city organization or if it's going to be
We're gonna
independent.
keep it this.
But in terms of funding, we grouped it here because it had similar functions.
Well, Tony, two things are new this year. In that the $10,000 for the swim team was floating around too.
That's correct.
And so it's been, so that's 10. And then the Crockett Tavern is 8,125, and that is really hotel motel tax, so it's not really here. So Mayor, that brings you to 238 under your
Oh,
250.
good, then that's what it would be. I think it would be a reasonable amount that we don't have, it's not gonna keep growing, especially with economics like that.
Well, I think we can monitor that every year, and we did. We stepped back and we adjusted instead of putting a cap on it. I think we can be,
As long as we're cognizant of it, I
Yes.
think it's fine.
Well, are you comfortable then with the approach of funding at the level that's in the proposed budget, asking those agencies that have not submitted financials to come back with financials before they get any funding? And then during the course of the year, we'll discuss the structure and governance of the diversity task. Okay, so that's the big blue notebook, which was the big homework we asked council to do this time.